My name is Dr. Lori Arnold. I am the medical director at California Center of Reproductive Medicine.
Hi, I'm Rich Geisler. I'm the principal attorney at Fertility and Surrogacy Legal Group.
Welcome to our webinar about information about travel during COVID-19 for surrogacy in the United States.
We'll be touching on some legal and medical issues that have popped up since the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically with regard to the surrogacy industry here in California and in the United States.
Our patients and clients need to come to the United States for 2 times during the IVF surrogacy process. One is for the IVF treatment and the second for the delivery to take home their baby. There are medical issues that have changed to travel to the United States during this COVID time. I've been doing surrogacy for over 25 years, and the last 5 or 6 months have been quite different for our patients, our international patients, to come here for IVF treatment. Number one is the health and safety of you to travel and to minimize your risk for COVID-19. We recommend that all of our patients follow the CDC Guidelines, which is the following website. Here on the screen we will give you before coming to the United States for treatment and or for delivery of your baby. Medical documents that are required for departure and entry into the United States include a medical necessity letter. We've written several letters for our patients telling the U.S. consulate in their country about the medical urgency and the timing required and the uniqueness of the treatment that is offered here in the United States. Also, it is required to have a negative COVID-19 test, and you be prepared to discuss at the port of entry your accommodations and your quarantine plan.
Traveling to the United States for treatment has changed a bit since the previous means in which to travel. COVID, you need to apply through the U.S. consulate for an exemption to the travel ban. Since there is currently a travel ban in place on the various regions for travel to the United States, there's exceptions to the travel ban to allow for travel here. One such exception is the national interest exception. That exception is in place to give folks the ability to come here in the event that it's in the national interest of the United States that they come here. In order to fulfill that exemption, you have to go through, as I mentioned earlier, the Secretary of State website and fill out forms and provide also a number of different items to them for that. That's a valid ESTA or visa of some sort. You need to be traveling from the originating city. You can't be traveling from a different city if you're applying for where you're from. You must travel within 30 days of the issuance of the NIE exception. You'll be giving you have to show them your passport and a G28 form, which is a form that we will give you that we fill out. This basically says that you have legal representation in the United States that's assisting you at this matter. You'll also have to provide an attorney affidavit and a medical necessity affidavit, which Dr. Arnold had just recently referenced. In that attorney affidavit, we'll be giving you information about the necessity that you come here legally to fulfill the obligations within your medical treatment you have to have. With regard to travel here under the national interest exception, there's only 15 airports that allow for travel here. So in order to get, especially here to Los Angeles, California, you should double check all the different airports you may need to fly through, and also work on, make sure you're paying attention to the time frames and timelines. Make sure that your ESTA's still valid. We've had some clients that had some issues with, they thought their ESTA was good and ended up not being good still for the time frame that they were allowed to travel in.
Rich, can you explain how you apply for ESTA, please?
Absolutely. So the ESTA is something you go through the Department of Homeland Security. We'll put up on the screen here the address to do that. It's a rather simple process that you fill out this form online. You get this in lieu of getting a visa. It's a faster, easier process that's allowed for certain countries throughout the world to come here, and it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's quite a simple process. And you can also get a visa of different types to come here as well. And again, just make sure both of those are valid, or whichever one is valid for the travel here. You want to arrive here prior to the baby's birth, to witness your baby's birth, obviously. We want to try and get you here as quickly as we can. And the way we do that is this very similar process that we just referenced with the national interest exception. The differences there is that you'll be providing them with your gestational surrogacy agreement, which is the agreement between you and your surrogate to ensure that you have the parental rights and that she's giving those parental rights up. And obviously your pre-birth order if that's issued at the time. The pre-birth order I'll get into a little bit more in the future, but basically it does give you those parental rights as executed by the court in California. Similarly, you also need another medical necessity letter at that point in time. Dr. Arnold, what other medical issues do you think are in place at this point in time for pre-birth arrival?
So we've been helping our patients come here before the delivery of their baby by writing a letter of medical necessity for them to attend the delivery, and also because of COVID-19 not to put a strain on the hospital for other care required. The hospital is also writing letters, as well as the delivering doctor, to the U.S. consulate to help these patients become part of the exception and obtain an NIE and, of course, the ESTA visa to travel. Also, our patients are required to have a negative Covid19 test, usually within 72 hours of travel, and documentation of this. And again, they need to be prepared about their quarantine plan and accommodations to do so.
What sort of requirements would the hospital have there? What do you suggest that clients do?
Each hospital has their own individual protocols, and so we recommend that our patients contact the social worker at each hospital, and we can facilitate and coordinate those meetings so they're up to date, because the requirements are changing. However, still they must follow the CDC guidelines to reduce the COVID-19 risk. Most hospitals are requiring the 14-day quarantine, and if not allowing the intended parents to be present for the delivery. Also, you need to be prepared when you plan to enter the hospital that they will be taking your temperature and asking you for any COVID-19 symptoms. If you're not able to attend the delivery, and we've had patients that have either been under quarantine and not fulfilled the 14-day quarantine, or they have not been able to travel because of delay of documentations, or even the airlines not coming in a timely fashion, they have not been able to be here for the delivery, unfortunately. And you have helped us in a number of cases. The hospital does require a power of attorney, and can you tell about a power of attorney, Rich, and what you've done for our patients so they can take home their baby eventually back home?
Yeah, absolutely, and that is something we've run into a number of times now. And basically what a power of attorney is, it's a form that we have you notarize that basically says that you've located somebody here in the United States, whether that be someone that you've hired as a nanny, perhaps somebody that you know here, a family friend. At times it's been the surrogate, that you basically give that person the authority to make medical decisions for the baby if necessary, to sign documentations with the hospital for you on your behalf, and also to have the baby released to you to their care. Now, we don't always see the need for medical decisions to be made for babies if it's an uncomplicated birth. Standard delivery, babies are usually there for about 2 days, so there's not a lot of medical decisions that need to be made prior to discharge. If it's a situation of a NICU baby where they are needing some sort of treatments above and beyond normal, hospitals now are working more with our clients to allow for telephone calls for decision making, and clients also will be working directly with the power of attorney to make sure that they're making the decisions that the parents want, and they're not just acting on their own behalf without information from the parents. As I mentioned, we will have you notarize that document as well as an 8022 form if that's required by the hospital. Each hospital is a little different. Some require an 8022 form, some have their own power of attorney form. Our teams always work together to speak with the hospitals on your behalf ahead of time to know what they need so that we can get them that document in time and allow for that notarization to happen as well.
Interesting, the hospitals usually discharge a healthy baby within 48 hours. Rich, how long does this power of attorney take?
We get those done, we'll coordinate with the parents ahead of time, so we get those done within 24 hours of getting the discussion with the parents as to who they've located to do the power of attorney. Sometimes there's little items we work out in terms of payments to the power of attorney and when it would extinguish, and it usually extinguishes immediately upon the arrival of the parents to the United States.
But don't worry, your baby will be fine if you cannot make it for the delivery. There are other issues that need to be dealt with, such as the baby's clothes. The hospitals do require that there is a car seat, and so our center and the agency has bought many car seats because there are quite a few patients that have not been able to come because of travel arrangements, as I mentioned earlier. Once your baby has been delivered, patients are coming over after the birth. Can you give additional documents that are required to get in the United States? And is this helpful? Does it expedite them coming here because now they have a baby that's a U.S. citizen here in the hospital?
Absolutely. So one of the travel exemptions that I referenced earlier is if you have a baby that's a U.S. citizen or a child of your own that's a U.S. citizen already, that's an exception to the travel ban that gets you here. So when your baby is born, traveling, let's say you cannot make it here prior to the baby's birth, traveling here post-delivery is something we can facilitate very quickly. We give basically what's a proof of birth. We provide that proof of birth to you, that you provide to the consulate to get that exception. I say proof of birth and not birth certificate because birth certificates aren't typically issued until about 7 to 10 days after birth, sometimes a little longer now due to COVID. So we work directly with the hospital to get what we call a proof of birth on their letterhead that says you are the parent and that you need to get here for your baby. Obviously, that's not a birth certificate, as I mentioned, but it has been accepted by the consulate's office. We also provide them with the judgment and with the surrogacy agreement, and those are the documents that we use in order to get the parents here after the birth. And they usually will arrive, again, based on the travel schedule of the airline. They'll usually arrive within days of the birth of the baby.
So having a pre-birth order then is most beneficial, correct?
Pre-birth orders are the best to have because they really assist you with getting here ahead of time before the birth, and they issue the birth certificates immediately upon the birth in your name. As I mentioned, there's a delay in receiving that, but immediately you are considered the parent.
So what are some of the advantages of California pre-birth order, Rich?
Well, think of them in basically 5 items. Prior to birth, you get all your parental rights. There's security. It's a quick, fast process to get home. There's no delay in your names being put on the birth certificate. And if anything else is required regarding a post-birth order or something like that, we can get that for you as well. There's no opportunity for, when I mention security or certainty of process, there's really no opportunity for the parents or the surrogate, especially, to change her mind throughout the process.
Which can happen with adoption orders or post-birth orders, which other parts of the United States require, and also delay the travel back to their home country, correct?
Yeah, especially with an adoption order, not so much with post-birth, but yeah, with an adoption order, you can, every adoption statute has its own period of time in which there could be a potential change of the mind, and in California, in our gestational surrogacy code, that's not allowed for. So, and as you mentioned, getting that pre-birth order ahead of time is very helpful in getting folks home sooner rather than later, waiting for any amended birth certificates, post-birth orders to be issued, or things of that nature.
So what are the requirements once the couple, the parents, intended parents, want to take their baby home back to their home country?
Sure, and what was a simple process pre-COVID has now been a little bit more difficult. So the reason that's been more difficult is you basically get your baby home using 2 methods. One is a passport, a U.S. passport for your infant, and the second would be to get a travel document from your consulate of your home country. The issue with the U.S. passport at this point in time is they are delayed. We used to get them within 2 or 3 days based on a few parameters. It's called an expedited passport. Due to COVID, though, the expedited passport issuing agencies are closed, and they're only allowing folks to set these appointments in the event of a life or death emergency. Life or death emergency is has some discretion to it, so we've been using perhaps some sort of issue that the baby might have, whether it be somewhat minor or not, if you, the intended parent, have some medical issue that we want to get them home for, so they can get treatment immediately. We've also had some luck with some clients where they have a family member that's quite sick, so they need to get home to take care of the family member. Perhaps they are the executors of the will or the trust, and they've issued us appointments for expedited passports in those situations as well.
We've also written medical letters that it's in the best interest for the family to return home for medical reasons, and so this has been quite helpful for our patients to return back to their home country.
And yes, and as we mentioned before too, if there's less luck with getting that expedited passport because we don't meet the life or death, most of our clients have been working with their home country consulate. Usually here in Los Angeles, they'll meet with the consulate there, and they've been issuing them travel documents to allow them to travel home at that point in time too, and we can help facilitate that as well.
Our clinic also has been conducting the Covid19 test for those that are required a negative. We also recommend that they look at their guidelines for returning at their custom and borders.
That's a great point, Dr. Arnold, because it is important to know a lot of the information we've given here today is about the U.S. side and the ways that we can get you passports and get you out or into the United States based on our State Department. But yes, please, we always recommend to every client to take a good look, potentially work with an attorney in your home country to outline any specific needs you may have to get back into your country that perhaps we haven't addressed here today, any specific requirements that you may have for travel back home too.
We welcome any questions for this on-demand webinar. Please note our email and our websites for any legal, medical questions that you may have. We look forward to helping you in the future have your family through surrogacy.
Yes, thank you for your time, and thanks for setting us up, Dr. Arnold. I appreciate it, and appreciate the ability to share some information with you in this changing time. As Dr. Arnold mentioned, our information's on here. We covered a lot of ground. I'm sure questions came up, so we're always happy to get on the phone and or email or what have you and have more conversation about specific requirements. So thanks again, everybody.